Hello, I'm Miranda, and today I'm reviewing White Dwarf issue 494. So, as always, the issue starts off with a letter from the editor. Chief editor is Lyle Lowry. Hi, Lyle. And he discusses unusual ways that people enjoy the hobby. Like, one of the examples he brought up was, people who use terrain setups to create like a pencil holder or something like that. Just things that weren't specifically related to playing Warhammer. And so the question is posed to the viewers or to the readers as to what ways do you enjoy the hobby, or enjoy like stuff in the hobby, I guess, that is unusual. Do you use them as weird Christmas dioramas to put under the tree, like when you make a little Christmas town, or do you make weird YouTube videos that involve like all kinds of crazy amounts of accessorizing and buying strange things, or printing even stranger things from the world to, add stuff. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you have unusual ways that you enjoy the Warhammer hobby? And this month's issue came with a fun fold-out poster, double-sided poster of the Age of Sigmar characters. Dankfear? Is that his name, really? Dankfear. And on the other side, we've got Aiden, the Knight Vexilor. There is also an update to the White Dwarf bunker, an update to the Slidecrown Isle campaign. They've completed the first round, I guess, of games involving protecting the forest or destroying the forest, wherever you sat on that side of the battle, or if you're a rogue and you switch sides per phase. And so far, I'm very pleased to report that the preservation side has been winning out, at least so far. Now, this is only the first mission. They needed to protect the forest from being razed, and now the battle has advanced onto various rivers, and so they need to prevent the rivers from being drained. And it's cool because the Slidecrown Isle has such a narrative focus that there's actually little excerpts of the individual battles that people played as told as a narrative. So you can follow their stories and get a sense of how a lot of their games went, but it also helps to render the world. It's really nicely done. And the November painting challenges for the bunker is to paint monsters and machines. The new 40k mission for this month is called Long Held Enmity, and involves each player at the start of the round making a secret wager against the other to see how many units are going to be destroyed, and if they are successful in destroying that number of units, they get a certain number of VP, and more so if they wagered and killed more units than their opponent. So it's very kill happy, but it also involves like a slight amount of, I guess, guessing and seeing how many you can kill in a given round. The new Age of Sigmar battle plan is called Battle of the Brimstone Peninsula. And one of the things I always appreciate is White Dwarf gives you these handy cards that have the new missions on them. Next up, we've got a Warhammer Cursed City what if campaign or scenario that you can play out. So if you're a fan of Cursed City and you want to try a new plan, this is again a what if scenario. If Ulfenkarn failed in their task and Radikar's plans for the city came to fruition. So definitely worth checking out if you are a Cursed City fan. All right, and back to one of my favorite articles, as always, basic training, following Stephen Bucks as he explains shooting, the shooting phase. And this is actually part one, because of course so much of 40k is shooting. I mean, as an IG player, of course shooting is like what you primarily live for from turn to turn. But it's important to consider various aspects of shooting, especially in 10th edition, weapons and rapid fire ranges, or assault weapons, or what the heavy rule does. And so in here, it gives you a breakdown of a few different scenarios to keep in mind and to think of. So, when you're building out your list, especially if you have any sense of, what you might be fighting, to pick weapons accordingly that are gonna give a lot of punch. Now, playing IG, you've got lots and lots of options, I think, but it's kind of cool to consider, again, like making use of your rapid fire shots, getting into range and thinking about that from turn to turn, or taking advantage of your assault. And also additional benefits like the ability to move after shooting, like my ratlings can do, and also using transports and fire support, because as we all know, vehicles and transports in general got a lot tougher in 10th edition. So the value of bringing transport seems to be back, and you can, a lot of transports anyway, you can actually shoot out of and get some of your good weapons from your infantry to fire during your turn. So these are other things to consider, the firing deck rule, and then of course a lot of moving shooting combinations. And then as always, there is a what if scenario provided that sort of describes a situation, and you can guess as to how you might best handle it to have the best chance at least of defeating the enemy, getting an objective, whatever. And then at the back of the issue, they go over several possible scenarios and then what they believe would be the best one. And I'm just gonna interrupt the video real quick to just ask that if you are enjoying this content, if you are enjoying this review, please make sure to let me know by leaving a like on this video. And if you've got any thoughts on what we've been covering so far, make sure to let me know in the comments as well. And if you like, definitely feel free to subscribe. All right, back to the review. And on the hobby hangout side, Lewis Collins is painting up some Tome Keepers from the Hive Fleet Leviathan. And he goes over, you know, batch process, how to get through them relatively quickly, but, you know, still picking out really cool details so you have a beautiful tabletop army. There's a lot of neat weathering techniques listed in here, including a hack I had never heard of before, where when you're trying to get the weathering effect, like you think of like a crackle texture paint, putting down a layer of PVA and letting that dry so that the crackles are more separated and more exaggerated. I don't know if anybody out there has used that technique before, if you can vouch for it. It's the first I'd heard of it, and it sounded interesting. And the satellite uplink for this month, the bunker of the month, basically is the GR meme team. So group of guys who get together, do some gaming, raise money for charity, good stuff. All right, and I think some of you are looking forward to this one. There is an Adeptus Astartes in here focusing on the successor chapter to Raven Guard, the Raptors. So there's several pages in here that explain the origins of the Raptors and how their fighting techniques over time have really specialized them into guerrilla tactics and being very diligent about learning about their enemy. But there are also Crusade rules in here if you want to use them in your Crusade games. Next up, we have a battle report between the Death Guard and the World Eaters, known as Blood Feud. So it's chaos on chaos in this case. So the Imperium can sit this one out and let chaos do the dirty fighting for a change. Next up, there is an heavy metal article, Brush Tips, in which they take a bunch of heavy metal artists or heavy metal painters who all challenge each other to a painting competition, I guess. Like, they're each painting different Corsair models and taking a totally different approach on it, and then they're acting to judge the models. And of course, for each of these beautifully well-painted models, they describe what their technique and what their thought process was, and you can also see the colors that were used in case you would like some inspiration for painting some of your models. Next, for AOS, there is a new mission for the Slidecrown Isle that you can play. Maximum of 1,500 points for this one, and there's also 3 new battle plans with it. And the article does point out that this particular mission is ideal for beginners. For the Tale of 4 Warlords update, the November challenge is to add new units to your existing force, just generally, or to paint a second Vanguard box set. And then we follow with the different players. We've got the Sylvanas player, Jake Belly, with his Lords of Chaos. We've got the Iron Jaws, represented by Ant Saliba. The Soulblight Gravelords, done up absolutely beautifully by Laura Matarasso, who did some really cool custom work on a couple of the models in here to just bring a real cool feel to them. And Chris Charles bringing the Gloomspite Gits. Always fun, ridiculous models. I don't even know why I like them so much. White Dwarf is doing, I think this is a bit of a new thing, maybe you guys can let me know. For Age of Sigmar, there's actually an article in here that provides you with a battle plan generator. So Obviously, there's loads of battle plans provided in every issue of White Dwarf, but this is one that allows you to just keep generating a bunch of your own. I think there were 1,300 possibilities or something like that as far as battle plans go. So if you just got this one and you wanted to keep your battle plans varied, this would definitely be the way to go. Then a little lore segment in the Age of Sigmar called the Call of the Hunt, in which I guess it's in Gyron, is that how you would say it? There has been strange growths and weird things happening, and the people who have lived in this village forever are trying to investigate that, and it goes really poorly, and it's all told through the view of this one older guy who has lived there forever, and yeah, living in this world is very dangerous, obviously, especially when you've got to worry about, you know, dryad-like things and the whispering forests, let's say. Then there is another lore piece. I guess it's kind of a world-building piece called The Anatomy of a Dawnbringer Crusade. So in the Age of Sigmar, you have the cities of Sigmar that are populated around parts of the world. Well, this has to do with Dawn, I guess, being the start of any of these cities of Sigmar. And it talks about sort of the early frontiersmen people that are made up of soldiers and people with various skills to go and, you know, set up towns in various parts of the wilds. And the success rate is absolutely abysmal. It's kind of like old life, like, you know, if you look back 1,000 years, you know. And so it's kind of fun because it talks about the different stages of how big a city can get, and kind of just how that entire process works from soup to nuts, I guess. Next up is a Warcry article called Nether Maze Bladeborne, in which they provide new rules for the various different Warcry factions. Skittershank's Clawpack, the Shadeborn, Gorechosen of Drom, and Hexbane's Hunters. So if you play with any of those dudes or those factions, there's some new rules in here for you. Next up, we've got some beautiful models pictured here under Legion's Imperialis. So you can see the different Sons of Horus paintings, or Arcadian tanks, or Ultramarines. Can't get enough of those. White Scars and Imperial Fists, and they've all been painted by, you know, the Warhammer team, so you know they look amazing. And they talk a little bit about, you know, their inspiration for choosing that to paint this go around. Then for you Necromunda fans, there is a lore piece in here called A House Divided that leads into a new scenario that you can actually play for Necromunda. It's like a parlay kind of game where you are trying to take out a matriarch. You are one matriarch trying to take out another matriarch. Sounds very catty, but either way, there's rules for that if you would like to play that as well here for Necromunda. And another one of my favorite articles in White Dwarf, the Black Library segment, in which it's called the Instigator. It follows the enemy of a bunch of orcs while also following a bunch of orcs who have come onto a space hulk. And, you know, craziness ensues from there. And, oh, who's going after the orcs? What a surprise. And it's of course, they're always fun, but it's well rendered, but kind of leaves a little bit of a mystery at the end because, well, reasons. And that wraps up White Dwarf issue number 494. Did you have a favorite article in here that I reviewed? Were you interested in the Raptors segment, or the basic trainings that they've been doing, or the lore segments? The world building stuff I always think is really cool, so helps me to learn a little bit more about the Age of Sigmar. Are you following or participating in the Slidecrown Isle? Definitely let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts are on these. And gosh, isn't it crazy? We're getting close to White Dwarf issue number 500. What do you think that issue is going to be about? Is it going to be a big retrospective? They're going to introduce something new? I don't know yet. I'm really curious. So let me know your thoughts and speculation on that in the comments as well. So yeah, that's it for now. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.